What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into today's edition of PHLY Union Podcast. Of course, I am one of your hosts, JP Zapata, and I will also be producing today. As we all know, of course, Renee and Tyler are down in Clearwater with our Phillies team. So make sure you guys send them some love, but they are representing for us here down in Clearwater. So in the meantime, obviously, I know a lot of people want to talk about Tuesday night's match against Pachuca, which we will definitely talk about later on down the line. But we are truly blessed here with the special edition of PHLY Union Podcast. Guys, I know we are all upset, but we still have soccer to be played here this upcoming Saturday, as Union will be traveling down to Austin, Texas to face off against Austin FC. So we are going to give you the perspective from the other side, ladies and gentlemen. So please, without further ado, covering all things Austin FC from pitch side with her newsletter, and of course, the brand new all Spanish speaking podcast for Austin FC, Rincon Verde. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Doña Michelle Sanchez. Michelle, what's going on? How are you doing?
I'm doing really great. Thank you. I am not a doña. I'm very single, with no kids. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you so much for having me. I am so excited. It's so funny. Pachuca, they played last night against Philly. I call you guys Philly. Yeah, I have family that lives in Pachuca. I go there like once a year. And so when I talk about that, those guys will like talk smack about MLS, they will, and they will do it with the passion, but they will also show it out on the pitch. And I'm sorry for the heartbreak, but yeah, let's get going.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, by the way, listen, it stings still, but Pachuca's a beautiful city, by the way. I must say that. So I'm a little bit jealous here. That's really awesome. Yeah. So obviously, Michelle, we're still reeling here. We're still a little upset here after last night's match. But look, we're gonna try to get everyone prepared because we still have MLS soccer to be played now here in Philly. So first off, before we get into it, Michelle, kind of want to talk a little bit about you. Obviously, you cover Austin FC, so let the people know kind of what you do for Austin FC and your coverage.
Thank you so much. So I'm actually from Austin, born and raised. I played soccer when I was little. My dad was, from Mexico. He played with America for a little bit. For obviously, back in the day, you had no support. You had to come to the States to make some money. So he ended up coming here, working, meeting my mom. They ended up settling down here in Austin. Didn't like Houston, didn't like Dallas. So then I was born. And then I, played soccer. I have two brothers. So I've always been around males playing soccer. I was a center back in my good old days. And yeah, I've always been a pioneer and advocate for the city of Austin to embrace soccer, just because I knew how much it meant to me, the special bonds that you could have with family, with the community. And then I started, my journalism career here. It was hard, and it's still been hard, but I decided to do it in Spanish. I've always been the person that I want to represent my roots, my community. So I joined Telemundo for a very long time. Austin FC came into the picture. I was obviously ecstatic. So I ended up having, really good connections with the team, interviewing players, and till this day now I kind of do my own thing, as you've mentioned, more of a freelance space. But I think it's essential to have that voice that maybe doesn't work for a connected media outlet that has there's certain angles that they want to put out there, to do it for myself and kind of being my editor of what Austin really is about. And the positives, but also the ugly. And, so far it's been a lot of like ugly, to say the least, since last year. So it's been tough, but hey, Philly is a top dog, and hopefully we will able to show up and show out, I guess.
Listen, we'll definitely talk about that, and especially want to talk about Austin over the past 2 years. But I really love your story, and I can definitely connect with that as a first-gen American myself. My family taught me about soccer too. America de Cali, not Club America. America de Cali was the one that I grew up on in Colombia. But no, it's so important because as there are more, Latinos all over the country, and a lot of us do love soccer, and the MLS is growing. It's important to have the Spanish-speaking presence there because there are a lot of Latinos, and I don't know about also. I know you guys have a fantastic fan base, But I know here in Philly, like we do have a tough time of connecting with those Latinos. It just, I just the marketing or who knows what it's been, but obviously winning on the pitch definitely does help. But it is so important having that presence. So Michelle, we definitely do appreciate that you do that, because we definitely need that around the league, Michelle.
Yeah, I think it's a league thing. It's not just an Austin thing as well, because we have a disconnect with our community when it comes to Austin FC. That's why I launched Rincon Verde, because I want it to be a space where we just talk in Spanish about soccer. Who doesn't want to talk about or listen to someone just talk about their local professional soccer team? It may not be up to the capacity of the first division in Colombia or Liga MX, but I do think I want to be at least give those players a face, a connection with the Hispanic community, because I drive and I see your regular folks that they drive by the stadium, but they don't really know how to purchase a ticket online, stuff like that. So if I'm able to just something so simple like that, able to get that information out there for someone's mom or dad or teenager. Obviously teenagers are so self-sufficient nowadays, but I think that's the goal. And I think it's an MLS thing, especially as you mentioned, they have so many Latinos in this league, and a lot of them don't want to speak Spanish, and that's okay. But I do think that there needs to be more of an emphasis to highlight their stories and who they really are. Like I said, it's Argentinos, Colombianos, Mexicanos, Panameños, Costarricenses, all that. And not a lot of them have a connection with that fan base. So it's important.
That is true. Step by step, Michelle. As I always say, step by step, we will definitely get there. But let's look at Austin FC, because obviously last year was a little bit disappointing, near the bottom of the table, a year after making it to the Western Conference Final. So I guess let's start off from there. What was the difference between 22 and 23 for Austin?
Oh my gosh, 22, you found Sebastian Driussi, and it was essentially like what I would consider his peak. He came from Senate, where he was playing but maybe wasn't making the biggest difference for his team. Signing as a DP here, a very, very talented player. I mean, you see the difference that he makes for Austin. Last year, 2012, sorry, was his first full season playing with MLS and in MLS for Austin FC. So as the runner-up for the MVP, was essential. They also had a really good defender, Ruben Gabrielson, center back, that ended up leaving. So it was, a plethora of things coming together, but then because of also behind the scenes, there was the scandal with Claudio Reyna that ended up happening, shortly after. A lot of those, yeah. So it was definitely an unfortunate situation, because at the end of the day, you go to LAFC, there's a rumor that they kind of got, it was their second year, they kind of got relaxed. And I think that's on the players. It's not on the coach. I heard rumors that they went out the night before. So it's a lot of unfortunate. Hopefully they learned from that, because 23 really did humble them. MLS is not easy. It's a very long tournament. Sebastian Driussi, the difference is, this team has centered everyone around one star, which is why St. Louis doesn't work like that. They have fundamental pieces in each position, and Austin FC has one star and everyone kind of works around him. And when that star is down, the team goes down. You don't find the goals, right? They can handle them, like, for example, as we saw St. Louis handle them. But when you're playing so back, it's really difficult to even make the fans excited about future games. So I think that would be the biggest difference. And I know people love to clown on Josh Wolf, but he was also the sporting director last year. Even though they had an interim, like essentially he was the sporting director and the coach. And when he's making these signings, I mean, I can only imagine his stress. And I don't want to belittle. I think he's accountable for strategies and tactics at times. But yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of behind the scenes drama, I think, around this club.
Yeah, you really do bring up some good points, and it's something that I've been discussing with Union fans because, look, we've been running it back for 3 years now straight. Like we have the same exact squad for essentially the last 3 years,
Mhm.
and like it's cool. Like we've been making playoffs. Second round of Eastern Conference playoffs is really cool. Making a semifinals of CCL is really cool, but like we're right there of getting to that at least a trophy, at least a CCC, at least an MLS Cup. And so that's the difficulty from year. You have to be able to change. And that's not just soccer. That's just sports in general. You have
Right.
to be able to reinvent yourself from year to year. And, like a team like Austin, 2022, having Jerussi being the star is great, but teams do catch up. These teams are really smart. They have great personnel. So things do catch up. And I think the same is actually happening here in Philadelphia. That's why we're seeing some of those struggles here. But it's a really good point. You got to change up every year, Michelle. It's like
Yeah, you do. And you have to be, you know, held accountable when you do make those tactics or when you do sign those players that, for example, Rigoni is a DP. And I know MLS has its weird rules about salary caps and all that. It makes it difficult, right? But he's a DP that hasn't worked out for Austin, to be honest. He's had like maybe one or two moments that he's been okay. But when you hold a spot like that, I mean, I think it adds pressure to him and it adds pressure to the front office as to, hey, you guys aren't really investing or your investment really, sucked. But the lack of better word.
Absolutely. Well, listen, their last match was against St. Louis, as you mentioned, a 2-2 draw. It's ironic because I want to talk about the defense for Austin, but your center backs score were your only goal scorers against St. Louis City. So what went down against St. Louis at home?
Yeah, I mean, when you don't have forwards that are look, these forwards are like pushing 30, right? So when you have forwards that, and then they just sold Valentin Noel, who was from the second team. It's a sporting director thing, I guess. He's seen how, what he's going to do with the forwards, why he ended up, selling Valentin. Maybe he sold him for a lot of money to the USL. And I think that he wasn't in his plans to, expand his career here as a forward. I think he was great. But so in my opinion, I think that was a wrong move for them. But yeah, when you have forwards that are pushing 30, that are, were signed as free agents, Sardes and Rubio were signed as free agents. And then Rubio's barely coming back. He hadn't played in a very, very long time. I think he really did show that he's here for a contract. He's here to make goals. He said it himself. He said it that he needs to be a little bit more tougher on himself, but he's, trying to get up to speed. I mean, you saw he was tired like at minute 70. So, and that's common, right? But when your roster lacks depth, where do you find these players? So it is good on the bright side that our center backs are scoring goals, but that's not their typical job to do. I mean, they're tall, they're big. I spoke to Cascante. He was super happy about that. But essentially he said like, hey, we didn't get the win. Yeah, I scored. I'm always happy to score for my team and help them to some capacity. But yeah, it's been tough. And even with, I asked him the same thing, like your center backs are scoring, as a former center back myself, but, proud of them. But they were very, very, hanging out towards the back, and center backs are defending while also scoring. It's very interesting to see. But
Absolutely. Listen, talk about depth, man. That's been a problem here in Philadelphia too. It's always hard to find those depth pieces, but that's why teams like LAFC, especially like the year they won, and when you have that depth, it goes a real long way.
right.
You mentioned Sebastian Drusi earlier. I saw he was on the injury report. Any updates on his status for Saturday and any notable injuries as well that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, so for the Philly fans, you guys may be lucky. We'll have more information tomorrow,
Okay.
Thursday, because that's when they usually host their press conferences. But I hear from the grapevine that he's still questionable. So at this point, it's 50-50. He did dress for last game, but I heard, during press conference, Wolf did mention that he just wanted to dress for his teammates. He wanted to be their bench for his teammates. There was no plans of him ever going in. But he just, as a captain of his team, he wanted to be there and kind of show some support and hopefully like cheer on his team, which I actually, seeing like the defense from Austin from last year, and then just like it's I think it was 8 center backs or eight defenders that we'll have had to use last season. They look so much better. So credit to them, credit to it was a better style of soccer that they played. Not ideal, but better from the team. So I predict that it's going to be about the same from, Philly, but I do think that Philly is going to be pretty exhausted after Tuesday's game. So that could be an advantage for Austin.
It's a really good point. I know a lot of people in Philly want to see them a little more animated, a little bit more, play a little more anger, because obviously getting shellacked 6-0 should piss any soccer player off. But I guess we're gonna have to find out and wait, Michelle.
Yeah.
But I have to ask this for the fan base here, for the Philly fan base. Obviously, last year we loaned out Brandon Craig to Austin. Didn't really see much of him. There's been questions of whether Brandon Craig is ready to be in a heavy rotation in the MLS as a center back. I guess kind of like your thoughts on Brandon Craig. Why didn't he play? Maybe if you saw him, what did you see from Brandon?
Yeah, when I think of him, I think about Kip Keller. I think about that horrible, unfortunate call that ended up giving St. Louis and his former teammate, that goal in their first game. So I think about that. I also think about the reality of kind of like, and it's not just Austin FC. I think in MLS Next Pro players, like second team players, I think you really have to be that good in order to earn a spot in the first team. As you've seen, as I've said right now, Valentino went to USL. So I think, honestly, like no BS, I think that he just wasn't good enough to what the coach was looking for. Even Kip Keller got, and that's what happens. Kip Keller gets into that situation where now he's at Cincinnati, and good for him. I'm glad he found a home, but you have to go to a USL team. It seems like regular corporate America. It's like very, very rare where you jump into that first team like CJ Foldry, but he's on bench. And do you really want to be benched, with the first team for your whole, career? No, not really. So I think that's what happened. I don't think it was that maybe he wasn't up to par to Wolf's standards and what he was looking for. He was a smaller kid. Cascante and Hedges are really big, tall players. So I do think that that's what's happened. And he maybe thought it was going to be an option, but ended up backtracking. And yeah, I'm starting to realize and think that these players from second teams need to go to a USL club and then to the first team MLS club.
Yeah, no, you really do bring up a good point. That's kind of where I was at with Brandon Craig. I mean, I think for a lot of Philly fans, what they saw was Brandon being in here in Philly. Obviously, look, for the past like half a decade, we've had a great room of center backs. And so they think that, yeah, Brandon has shown some raw ability. He should be able to plug and play. And I think a lot of people saw Austin. I think they allowed like 55 goals last year. And they were like, well, why doesn't Brandon Craig play? But it's kind of what you said. I mean, he's still a young kid. He does have a lot of raw ability. But, I mean, here in Philly, you have Jakob Glesnes, Defender of the Year 2 years ago. You have Jack Ellie, who was a runner-up. And then you have Damian Lowe, who stood out really well last year. So it really found him in a tough spot. But right now he's with El Paso, the locomotive team down there. So hopefully he gets his playing time, because it's really what he needs. He needs that repetition, that playing time. But yeah, I definitely wanted to figure out what was going on with Brandon Craig there. But
yeah, and I think, not to interrupt you, but if you've seen the rules of calling up second team players, they're also really weird. It's like, oh, you could call them up 4 times in the season, but they need to be benched twice and they can only play twice. It's like, regular minutes for an MLS match. It just doesn't also give the coach and the player the advantage of actually seeing these players play a game maybe throughout their season, and then they ended up getting signed with a longer contract or with the first team contract. It's very different in Mexico. It's like, oh, we have like a Leagues Cup. They start sending their second team players and mixing them in with first team players. It's just so weird to me and bizarre as well.
I am right there with you. So many rules MLS just absolutely don't make sense. But gotta love it. Gotta love Garber. All right. So last but not least, of course, I want to talk more about this last one. I want to talk about the game here. just your kind of analysis. What do you expect here from Austin FC, tactic wise, just philosophy wise? What do you see happening here Saturday?
Yeah, I see that you're going to see a very hungry Diego Rubio. He mentioned it post press conference. He mentioned it to me. He said he's hungry. He really wants that first goal for the team. So you're definitely I'm going to see a very aggressive Diego Rubio. I think you're going to have a similar lineup to St. Louis. I think Valencia, your Deportivo Cali, your homie, he's done such a spectacular job for Austin. So you will definitely see him go out and show out. Every player here is hungry to get that, start, because like Valencia, he wasn't a starter last season. So now that he's getting those minutes is essential for him. And yeah, I think it's going to be a similar play as St. Louis. They're going to try to survive. Honestly, they're going to try to survive. They're going to try to score first. It's hard. You talk about St. Louis really being aggressive. It's hard to do that at Q2 just because the environment is very, very loud. You could feel, you can't really hear, players talking. I've heard it from past players. It's really hard to communicate. And then you'll also see a very, very spectacular Brad Stuber. I mean, if you guys have 20 shots, maybe one goal goes in or 2 goals. But he's just been superb this season. There's a reason why he's been the only Austin FC goalie for the club, even though it's so early in their history and stages of life in MLS. But yeah, I think you're going to see exactly the same thing. Hopefully, if you have Sebastian Driussi out on the pitch, which right now it's 50-50, I will say you will see a more offensive team, but we will see.
We shall see. You have a final score prediction?
I don't know. Those are always tough.
They're always so tough.
Because they were winning against St. Louis, and then they loosened up in the last 5, and you just never do that. So I don't know, man. Let's do 2-2.
All right.
I don't know.
It's ironic. I swear this is a coincidence, Michelle, that right next to my computer here, I went to Austin last fall. I stayed right behind. I don't know if you've been there to Cenote.
Oh, yes.
Fantastic breakfast, fantastic service. So they gave me a sticker, and then I keep it here. So it's ironic that we're talking Austin. I got Cenote here. So shouts to Cenote, shouts to Austin. But Michelle, we really do appreciate you coming in here. I do love for you to plug away so we can find your work, especially that Rincon Verde.
Yeah, so all of my social media, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and X, Twitter, it's Michelle S _TV. You can find Rincon Verde on Spotify, YouTube, but yeah, mostly if you just search me, you'll end up seeing like a tab. But yeah, I'm excited. What is your final score prediction before we leave?
Ooh, this one's tough. The thing is as well, and we didn't even talk about this. First time we both have ever met. So like we don't even know what to expect because we've never seen each other play each other. So that's going to be the tough part about it. I do know Austin is tough to play in. I've heard, I've seen the atmosphere. It is very tough. I'm just curious how this team is going to look. I really hope that they come out here a little bit animated because you should be pissed off. But I think I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I think it's going to be low scoring. And I really hope that they do walk away with the draw, especially after Tuesday. But I got a low scoring tie game here. So that's where we're gonna go. I can keep it
low scoring. Okay. I at least have 2-2.
Michelle, thank you so much. We do appreciate it. We will talk soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
See it, ladies and gentlemen. Michelle Sanchez. Make sure you guys check her out. Her newsletter with PitchSide, that is all English, Austin FC. And of course, her Rincon Verde, which is a Spanish-speaking podcast here for Austin FC. Awesome stuff. So yeah, so if you guys are watching, this is actually pre-recorded. So we actually recorded this on Wednesday. We're going to have this out on Thursday. Obviously, like I just said at the beginning of this, we have Renee and Tyler down in Clearwater. I will be heading to Puerto Rico for the next 5 days. So time was getting a little tricky. So we want to make sure we get this in here. And of course, Michelle has some time out of her day. So we were able to get that insight from Austin FC. Look, I wanted to spend the last 5 to 10 minutes of today's show just kind of talking about Tuesday and just our feeling. I don't want to talk too much about the match because there's nothing really to analyze. We looked like crap. All right. That's just the fact of the matter is we looked like straight up crap. But the bigger issue at hand is the fact is we've been in this situation now, what, 3 or 4 times? We were here in 2021 after the CCL semifinal. We were here in 2021 after the Eastern Conference final. Obviously, that wasn't really our fault. 2022 MLS Cup final. Last year, we all know what happens in the playoffs. And like, yeah, sometimes it's unfortunate. COVID happens. We don't get the proper review. That stuff definitely happens. But too many times, we've gotten so close, but yet no cigar. And we have, like we talked about with Michelle, we have been running this team back for 3 years, hoping for something to change without adding any significant changes. Look, you heard Renee. Renee even sold me on Marcus Anderson, and that's been great. He's been fantastic, but it's really hard to get anyone excited when you're buying players from third division leagues in Spain. I'm sorry. It's just really hard to get excited about that. Although, we'll say Marcus does look like he might be a little bit of a tool for us this year, but we're gonna have to wait and see. So it's just really frustrating kind of where we are at right now, because it feels kind of like we're stuck in no man's land. Like we know we're good amongst the MLS, amongst the Eastern Conference. We're one of the best. But when you're talking about being the best, do we have enough to be the best? And this is where the fan base is just hitting their head on the wall, because we don't know if we're that good enough to get there. Now, obviously, right now, we're not. And the fact is, I think someone put it on Twitter, the payrolls between Pachuca and Philly were not that different. I think it was like a 1.5 mil, if that. So when you think about that, the Pachuca team, although was good and although was better last on Tuesday night, it was still a winnable game. And obviously, like, if you get a goal, things could have changed, right? Like the away goal. We all know the away goal. We all know that rule. We all kind of understand how the away goal rule works. Sorry, a little bit of a tongue twister there, but you guys are getting my drift. We didn't show up. And what do we always talk about? The good teams, the Columbus Crews, the Atlanta Uniteds back in the late 2020s, the LAFCs. Those guys had killers. Those guys had, in the moment where it mattered most, someone to score a goal. Well, how about your DP players who make the most money on the team, who you would expect to step up big when it mattered the most? They unfortunately did not step up. Mikel Ua has had an abysmal start to the season. Daniel Gazdag, again, has disappeared. And unfortunately, I can't even defend the what do they call him? The pen dag, the pen killer. Obviously, we know he's lethal from the penalty kick, but you can't always be fishing for penalties. You can't always be fishing for that penalty shot. And this is where we're at. We need a little more. And obviously, everyone's pointing fingers at Jay Sugarman, as they should. Jay has to be making profits now. After the past couple of years we've had, we won the bronze. We won third last year. We took third in Leagues Cup. That's some type of money. CCCs, that there's got to be money there. You've been selling off players. Obviously, I'm a math wizard. I'm not a financial expert. I don't know what the profit loss or the profit or loss there is with this team exactly, but they have to be making some type of money. And like, I don't think anyone, and I just interacting with Union fans, I don't think anyone's sitting here and expecting them to go out and get a Gareth Bale, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, or a Lionel Messi. But at least someone who's going to come here and make a difference. Like we just talked Austin FC with Michelle. Sebastian Drusi. Imagine you were able to buy a player like Sebastian Drusi here for the Philadelphia Union. I think Austin spent a little over $5 million. I'll have to double check that deal. But like, it's about the ambition. Like, we know we're good, but like, do you just want to be good? Collect some money, be in the playoffs, just be in the playoffs. Do you really want to be the Red Bull for a decade? And unfortunately, it feels like that's where we're getting to. Like, yeah, like you can either look at it glass half full or glass half empty by looking at the Red Bull, because obviously they made the playoffs over a decade, like 10 straight times. I think over the decade. But they've been consistent. They've been a consistently good, not great team. Good enough to make the playoffs every year, but not good enough to win any type of trophies or even advance far into the playoffs. I don't want that. And the problem is, I think this window is like, if you don't make moves in the summer, and it's going to be tough because we all know how summer deals work. It's very difficult. But this is it. With this crew, with this team, this is it. If you don't get it done now, I think it's over. I flat out think it's going to be over here. Now, after Tuesday, I was upset. It's hard for me to get excited or think anything positive about the Philadelphia Union, and I expect the rest of the fan base to kind of feel the same way about the Philadelphia Union as well. So what I want to do here, so I asked a question here, and I'm going to pull it so everyone can see here on Twitter. So I asked this question here, and of course, you guys, if you guys want, you guys can very well follow me here on Twitter at Parcero Philly, and make sure you guys follow as well to PHLY Union Podcast. We're available on Twitter as well. But so here's the question. So I asked, is anyone looking forward to Saturday's match against Austin? How are we feeling about the club and the season going forward? So I want to read some of these comments here. So Dan Harriman, and by the way, thank you to everyone who threw these comments, because I really wanted to read these on the show. Dan says, it's almost too soon for me to know. Disappointed still, but shouldn't be given the lack of moves. We get what we get, but just so let down by this owner, front office, and Jim for a lineup that set DOOP up for failure. All right, that was Dan. Balls McNaughton said, I'm going to watch all the games with zero expectations unless proven otherwise. Yikes. That one might even be worse because now he's indifferent. That one's tough. Parody, SJ Destroyer 24 DOOP. Michael Borton, shouts to Michael Borton. Says, I am, just because I'll be there. So, look, Michael already put the money down for them tickets, so he's got to go. But Michael's also a very passionate Union fan, so I would expect him to be here. We love SOB Evan. He was a dear guest here on the PHLY Union podcast a couple months ago. It sounds stupid, but extremely excited for Saturday. That's the optimism we love from Evan. The team has tons of quality despite needing some more and can still have a very successful season if things go right. Need this game out of mind and move quickly. 40-ish games to go. Oof. When you put it like that, it's a long-ass season left, guys. Cuz 729 says, I'm not looking forward to the rest of the season. Honestly, if my season tickets had any value, I'd sell them. This team has been sliding since losing MLS Cup, and I'm afraid it's only going to get worse. Yikes. He's not lying, though. He's not lying there. Kareem Nanji says, love this club, will always love this club, but there looks to be zero depth. The heart was there, the legs were not. This could be a disappointing season. Man, you guys are starting to get the gist here. Trav, man, I regret getting season tickets. Anthony Arat says, not feeling great, but still will watch. I'm actually more excited for Union 2, and I love the excitement people are having for Union 2. That's definitely love to hear that. Salty Jones says, regretting paying for MLS Apple TV. I guess I get that, especially when the Union suck. I don't suck right now, but you guys get my drift. They suck right now. They suck our passion and our love and our happiness. Craig Brennan says they will contend in division, but this behind us, bad outing all around, don't have to translate into an entire season. So obviously, look, no one should feel good besides Evan. We love Evan for giving us that optimism, but everyone obviously is in a down spot, and I completely get that. One thing I will say, because I heard a lot of Jim Curtin slander, which I guess I get. Look, someone's got to take the blame, and Jim knows as well when the team's not performing well, who's going to get the main blame? It's usually going to go to the manager / coach first. I think that it is tough to be Jim Curtin here because you've heard Jim Curtin talk about the frustrations as well. He actually even talked about it after the Flamenco the preseason game. Like, it's tough to have your guys go out there, believe, give it their all, and just fall short because simply you just were not talented enough. Is that coaching? I mean, number one, Jim has to work with the rotation and the squad he has. He has to work with the 18 that he has available to him. Sometimes it's less than that, obviously, right? You have to keep in mind that we are in the middle of an MLS season as well. So there has to be rotation. I can't really blame Jim for the rotation. So the one thing I've always criticized Jim was the lack of rotation and, killing players like Alejandro Bedoya for like the last 4 or 5 years, knowing he was getting older, running him out for 90 minutes after 90 minutes after 90 minutes. Obviously, things are different now. But this year, can't really kill him for the rotation because he has rotated. I think he's done a good job of rotating. And the tactics are kind of what they are. Guys, remember, Jim didn't bring these tactics, okay? If you guys remember, before Ernst, when Jim was here, Jim was running the 4-2-3-1. He was excessively running the 4-2-3-1, just like this formation now. until Ernst got here and said, we're changing the philosophy. We're going to a 4-4-2 diamond. We want a compact midfield, and we want more of a high press presence. And that's what you've been seeing over the past couple of years. Now, obviously, personnel's changed. Players have been coming and going. Injuries have happened as well. And, even like on Tuesday night, you saw a Christmas tree to start off. Well, you even saw the 3-5-2-1 last year, or 3-5-1-2, I should say, last year. You saw the Christmas tree now. Actually, the past two games, I think we saw the Christmas tree. 4-4-2 diamond is still the mainstay. But, the guys got to understand that I don't know for a fact, but I am going to go on a hunch, just because of the context that I have in front of me, that Jim is not the one who sets these tactics. Jim is going off of what the guideline is that the athletic director wants for this team that he put together, and Jim is working with what he has. Obviously, when Carranza's not going to start, and you want to have a strong midfield, and you're putting Quinn out there with Gazdag and Ua, Christmas tree makes sense. It's just unfortunate, guys. It sucks, but we do have a lot of soccer here left. Obviously, PHLY will have you guys covered with more soccer going forward. But we got Austin right now, and we just discussed Austin. So if you guys have not checked that out, make sure to watch us over again. Shouts out to Michelle Sanchez. She did a great job of giving us that perspective. But yeah, that's going to do it here for me. We'll be back again next week here for another edition of PHLY Union. I am off to Puerto Rico. Renee and Tyler are they should be in Clearwater now. I probably should go check up on them. That would be the good thing to do, right, guys? So I'm going to go check up on them, and make sure you guys take care of yourselves as well. We'll be back again next week. We'll be talking about this match. We'll be looking forward to some more Union matches. Guys, do me a favor. If you guys enjoyed today's content, make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe for more for all Union things. Make sure you guys are checking out PHLY Union Podcast. I want to give one more shout out to Michelle Sanchez for giving us that Austin perspective. Guys, please stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your day. Until next time, DOOP on, guys. Love you.